let's be honest with each other. This season is kind of weird. It's hard to make heads or tails of this Kansas City Chiefs team. It seems to be player for player, 1 through 53, the best team that Patrick Mahomes has ever played with. It also appears that they are on a hot course for the most losses that a Patrick Mahomes team has ever had. And the worry and the fret among the fan base, among the Chiefs media, the media of the kingdom, if you will, is sort of that this is a disaster. The trade deadline having come and passed is a disaster for this team. But there are various levels of assuming that it is a disaster. But we have an article that I wanted to get into not because I wanted to pick on the author at all, right? I think that Brandon Kiley does good work, but I think that this is one of those overreactionary articles that has come out about this thing, and I want to tell you why. And in an article titled, "After Inaction at the Trade Deadline, Are the Chiefs Headed to Failure?" Subtitled, "Kansas City Didn't Make a Move at the Trade Deadline. Will it cost the team a Super Bowl?" Is this to assume that a Super Bowl is the only non-failure? And if so, okay, that's fine, I get it, right? But it is a very high bar. This is from Arrowhead Pride by Brandon Kiley. We get the following. So it made sense for the Chiefs to seek. So he had gone on a diatribe about the defensive line and the defensive line's failings or shortcomings so far this season, and then concluded with this paragraph. So it made sense for the Chiefs to seek help from outside, but they made no trade for a pass rusher. Here are the deals made for 5 defensive linemen in the past week. Defensive tackle Quinnen Williams for Mazi Smith, a 2026 second-round pick, and a 2027 first-round pick. Defensive end Joe Tryon-Shoyinka and a 2026 seventh-round pick for a 2026 sixth-round pick. Edge Keon White and a 2027 sixth-round pick for a 2027 sixth-round pick. Edge rusher Jalen Phillips for a 2026 third-round pick. Edge rusher Draymond Jones for a 2026 conditional fifth-round pick. Realistically, Kansas City was never going to spend the draft capital or have the cap space necessary to get Williams. The question is, should they have? Should they have mortgaged 2 drafts and traded a defensive starter for a defensive tackle? We'll look at that in a moment. Necessary to get Williams. At this point, Tryon-Shoyinka is nothing more than a depth player. That's probably true of White, too. Although, as a former second-round pick coming off of a 5-sack season for the New England Patriots, he is intriguing. A third-round pick would have been a lot for Phillips, also on an expiring deal. A third-round pick for half a season of a guy who does not have the most sacks in the world. But he appears to be returning to form after missing most of 2024 with a torn ACL. His ceiling was being go-to pass rusher alongside Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. So while the risk was real, the upside was easy to dream about. But it would have been, at this point, just a dream. But missing out on Draymond Jones was bad. The former Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks, and Tennessee Titans defender, well, if he's all that good, why is he bouncing around so much, is exactly what the Chiefs have been lacking. He accounts for just $1.3 million against the Ravens' salary cap, was dealt for a day 3 pick, and can play anywhere along the defensive line. It's the kind of move Brett Veach made by trading for Melvin Ingram or picking up Terrell Suggs on waivers. It might be that I'm overreacting to Sunday's loss. Still, Kansas City's failure to add add to the defensive line feels like a whiff. I have no doubt the offense is capable of winning a Super Bowl. I have faith in Steve Spagnuolo to get back to get peak performance out of the secondary by the postseason. But the defensive line is the team's biggest issue. So here's the thing. Okay, Quinnen Williams, the crown piece of this defensive line trade class. Do you think the Cowboys are now destined for the Super Bowl? I do not. They traded I believe Mazi Smith was a defensive starter. Maybe I'm misspeaking on that. I don't want to keep saying it if I'm wrong. But also a 2026 7th-round pick and a 2027 first-round pick. Did I say 7th? I meant second-round pick and a 2027 first-round pick. I don't think you make that type of trade for anyone who is not an impact player at a marquee position. If you're talking about a cornerback, sure, make that trade. If you're talking about a wide receiver, it's going to have to be a good one, right? If you're talking about a defensive tackle, no. And here's the thing. A defensive tackle who this year has a single sack, who this year has 7 tackles for loss, which is pretty good, but only 3 quarterback hits. A defensive tackle who through 7 seasons does have 40 sacks. 1 of them this year, 6 last year, 5.5 the year before, a 12-sack season, 6, 7, 2.5 back there as a rookie. The 12-sack season is a really good one. 6-sack seasons, 5.5 sack seasons, that's pretty good. It's not elite. It's pretty good. 7 sacks for a defensive tackle is approaching elite. So you're looking at 2 seasons of elite play in his 7 years, and you're trading a second, a first, and a defensive player. I thought it was a starter, maybe just a depth piece. Okay, not going to happen. Wasn't in the cards for the Chiefs. What about Joe Tryon Shoyinka? Do you believe that the Bears are suddenly Super Bowl contenders? I do not. Here is what this player has done this season so far, playing in 8 games. 0 sacks. 1 quarterback hit. You want to make that trade? So if we're looking at things fairly here this season, let's look at a big picture. Combined tackles 9, combined tackles 11 for Mike Danna. Solo tackles 5, solo tackles for Mike Danna 4. Tackles for loss for Joe 0. Tackles for loss for Mike 2. Hits on the quarterback for Joe 1. Mike Danna has 3. Why trade for Mike Danna? You already have one. Why make that trade? You already have a Mike Danna. Now, maybe you can do more with Joe Tryon Shoyinka than you can with Mike Danna. His NFL career does not suggest as much. His NFL career suggests that he is Mike Danna. He has, in his 17-game average, where am I at here? 3.4 sacks. Every 17 games, he has 3.4 sacks. Mike Danna has 4.6. What are you trying to prove trading for someone like that? Okay, well, what about the next name on the list, Keion White? I'm going to be very honest with you. When I saw this on here, I was fairly upset because I thought Keion White was going to be good coming out of college. He was traded for peanuts. I thought the Chiefs could have used him until I really looked at what it is he's done. 5 sacks in 2024, that's true. It's true as a defensive end. 5 sacks is an also-ran season. 5 sacks is a Mike Danna season. His rookie year, he only had 1. So far, in 6 games of participation and 1 start this season, he has 0. He has 0 hits on the quarterback this year. What are we talking about here? This is the guy that I kind of wanted out of this group when I heard that he was traded. Hasn't done anything in the NFL. Nothing that Mike Dana hasn't done. The problem is the Kansas City Chiefs have had a bunch of Mike Danas collecting on the roster. Mike Dana's a good player. Probably not a starter. Probably a contributor. What about Jaelan Phillips? You want to trade a 3rd-round pick for a guy who has 3 sacks and 7 quarterback hits this year? Maybe you do. Maybe you do. He has 2 more sacks than Mike Dana. 1 fumble recovery for 4 yards, 25 tackles. He's pretty productive. I'll give you that. Maybe not necessarily in the pass rush department, but a 3rd-round pick? Again, guys, the Chiefs are seemingly, at this point, destined to have their worst record of the Patrick Mahomes era. Seemingly destined to be on that pace. If that's true, and you get booted out of the playoffs, you're going to be giving away a top 100 pick for 8 games of Jaelan Phillips. I just don't see it. I just don't see the real value add. Again, 3 sacks. He's on pace for 6 sacks. That's Mike Dana. That's Mike Dana. Then there's this one, Draymond Jones. And as the article alludes to, yeah, this one kind of stings. This is a guy who has, through 9 games, 4.5 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, 5 tackles for loss, 26 total tackles, 1 fumble recovery, etc. Seems to be a fairly productive player. But there's a couple things going on here. You have to ask yourself, were the Titans willing to trade to the Chiefs? Were they willing to do that when they have just taken a cornerback, L'Jarius Sneed, from the Chiefs, who has not done anything for them? Maybe there is still a grudge there. Also, I think that if you are the Titans, you're assuming that the Ravens will be picking higher than the Chiefs. Maybe you're wrong, but that's what you would assume. Meaning that for the Chiefs to get this player, they would have to trade a higher draft pick. They do not have a higher draft pick in that round, meaning they would have to trade their previous round's pick. So the Chiefs, instead of getting him for a 5th, would have to get him for a 4th. So let's take a step back from the ledge. Let's look at this season so far. You lost to the Chargers by 6 points, maybe 7, depending on how you want to count that. You lost to the Eagles by 3 points, maybe 4, depending on how you want to count that. Those losses sting, but certainly they're understandable. Then you spanked the Giants. Then you spanked the Ravens. Then you had a blunderfest loss to the Jaguars. That stings, but losses happen. At this point, you are 2-3, kind of down on your luck, kind of down on the season. You beat the Lions handily. Okay, back at 500. Which of these losses is inexcusable with the exception of the Jaguars? You spank the Raiders like you've never spanked the Raiders. You spank the Commanders. Then you come out and you have a 6 or 7 point loss to the Bills. We are on edge, in my opinion, for absolutely no good reason. Now, look. Still got the Broncos, still got the Chargers, still got the Colts. Lots of very difficult games. If you lost to the Jaguars, you can lose to any of those other teams that you play as well. That's true. The execution is not quite there for the Kansas City Chiefs this season. It's true, they could lose any of those games. They could lose any of the games on their schedule. That said, I don't think they will. I think they make the playoffs. That's the only goal at this point. Probably the AFC West is out of the picture. Probably. Although you do still play the Broncos twice. You beat them twice. It's basically like 1.5 wins each. You could win the division. And boy, would that be wild. But get in the playoffs. Once you get into the playoffs, all bets are off because Patrick Mahomes is going to run the ball. Patrick Mahomes is going to take fewer wild risks. Andy Reid is going to open the playbook. And Steve Spagnuolo is going to get after the passer. The trade deadline, yeah, not awesome. Not the worst thing in the world either. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.